Hi everyone, it's Shea. Welcome to or back to my channel. I know it's been a while since I made a video, but I'm excited to come to you today and tell you all about the ways that I've been practicing Italian and learning Italian outside of class here in Italy. So first off, I do just want to say that I apologize for not making as many videos. I've been struggling a little bit about figuring out what kind of content to show you guys. I post a lot on my Instagram stories, so definitely be sure to follow me on Instagram if you want to see more of like day-to-day things that I'm doing, things that I'm studying, my life in Bologna, where I'm traveling to around Italy. But yeah, just let me know because I had some fun making a few vlogs in the beginning, but then I had some comments of people saying like, I don't care about these vlogs, like I'm here to learn a language. So that hurt a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, like I can always choose what kind of content I want to put on my channel anyways, whether that's even if that's a mixture of some vlogs and some more informational language learning content. But I think for me, I also want to be able to document my process of learning and living here, although I am definitely more nervous to film in public. I'm just not super comfortable with that. And, you know, I don't really want to be like filming other people. So still trying to figure that out, but also let me know what you want to see in the comments because I am here in Italy, and if you're curious about what life is like in Italy, I'd be more than happy to make videos explaining anything about life here, visas, language school, whatever that may be. I've also been thinking about maybe doing like Instagram lives or going live on TikTok or something so that way you all can ask me questions in real time. Anyways, let's get to the video. Today I want to share 4 ways that I have been continuing to practice Italian outside of school. So I know a lot of people think, okay, if you move to a country, you will just be able to pick up the language. That's definitely not true. And even though I go to school here, there are more ways that I need to be continuing to practice outside of my school hours because I am learning a lot in school, but I definitely noticed in the beginning that I wasn't progressing as quickly as I wanted to until I started doing these things. The first thing is buying books in Italian. And if you've watched my videos before, you know that I already have been reading books in Italian, and I finally just finished the book that I had started probably almost a year and a half ago. I finally finished it the day before I went to Monopoly. The book took place in Monopoly, so it was a very special moment to finally finish this book and then go to the city that, you know, the book took place in. So it was really cool and I felt really proud of myself. I finished it a lot faster. Once I got here in Bologna, I can read a lot faster, whereas in the beginning I would only read like 1 to 2 pages at a time. There is a bookstore here in Bologna, but also they're all over Italy. I think it's called Feltrinelli, and they have all kinds of books, even books in English as well. What I ended up buying was this book. I know it's the talk of the town right now. Everyone is so obsessed with Colleen Hoover. I've never read a Colleen Hoover book before. I was like, I don't know what the hype is. Let's see, let's check it out. And I saw it in the bookstore in Italian. I know the title is still in English, but they have like the Italian. It still takes me a while to get through, but definitely a lot faster than when I first started. The benefits of reading a book in, you know, your target language helps with vocabulary. Just like the repetition of seeing certain phrases really helps you memorize them. Also for me, it's kind of interesting because I think reading also helps me figure out what sounds right. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but basically when I'm talking in Italian and I'm trying to figure out, I don't know, the correct pairing of certain words or word order, sometimes I'm like, oh, this sounds better this way. And I think it's because I've read it before or I've heard it before, seen it before. So I think subconsciously it also kind of helps you be able to figure out the correct positioning of words, or, you know, for example, whether you should use avere or essere with a participle, you know, sometimes that can be kind of confusing in Italian. So things like that. If you've seen it before, you've read it before, you could be like, oh, I remember seeing this, reading this before. I see a lot of phrases when I'm reading books because sometimes if I'm trying to translate directly to English and then I'm like, why does this seem really strange when you translate it to English? More often than not, it's like a specific phrase or a modo di dire, which is like basically a saying. If you try to translate it to English and you're like, why does this sound like the weirdest thing ever? It's usually like part of a phrase or a saying that is only in Italian. So again, another good way to learn that as well. My second tip is talking with people on my trips. So again, if you haven't been following me on Instagram, you don't know, but I go on a lot of solo adventures, which has been really great to push myself to speak with more people in Italian and, you know, do my best to ask for advice, ask for directions, talk with people more. So my tip is to talk with waiters or shop owners, but beyond just the typical I'd like to order this, I'll have this kind of thing. For me, it usually works out very well because usually waiters always come up to me and speak to me in English until they realize when I order in Italian, they immediately go like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you." And then I'm like, no, you're right. Like, I'm American, but I'm learning Italian in Bologna. And then that gives, like a conversation starter. They go, oh, that's so cool. And then they ask me more questions. And then there's a little bit of an exchange. So it's a good way to practice talking about myself, what I'm studying, how long I've been studying, talking about Italian. It's just like a very good way to have short conversations and practice without, like having to sit down and meet a new person and sit down and talk for hours. It's like good little tiny bits of practice. And usually I find in Italy that people are very happy to talk with people who are learning Italian. They're very encouraging. So it's a great place to do this. Also, asking for help or suggestions of things to do, places to go, places to eat. I usually am not one to ask people just on the street, like, oh, what do you recommend? Because that feels a little awkward to me. But for example, when I was in Cinque Terre, I went to this wine bar and I asked them if they had this wine that I had tried the day before because I really liked it. And they didn't, but then they were super nice. They were talking to me in Italian, and then the guy ended up having me just like try a bunch of other ones to see if I liked those. And it was just a very nice conversation. A lot of times like this, you also get a lot of just like free stuff. If you talk in Italian, people get so excited. I also got like free food at this restaurant in Rome because the waitress was so nice and thought it was so cool that I'd been learning Italian, and so she gave me like a free appetizer. I was like, I didn't order this, and she goes like, I know, I'm just giving it to you. So sometimes you get like special treatment, I think. Third thing that I have done here in Bologna is I have met some local Italians to practice with, because that was my biggest thing of just finding friends here, but also friends who I could practice speaking Italian with, because the biggest way to learn, obviously, is just getting practice actually speaking. One thing that I did, definitely like an unconventional way, but it worked out really well for me. I ended up making a TikTok where I spoke in Italian and I said, my name is Shea, I'm living here in Bologna studying Italian, and I'm looking for friends to practice with, do like the language exchange. It got so many views. I had, literally not kidding, hundreds of messages in my Instagram DMs. It was a bit overwhelming. I didn't expect it to like blow up that much, but I ended up meeting with a few different girls and all of them were super nice, and I still hang out with them. It's really nice to hang out with them and just be immersed in what it's like just having a group of Italian friends. So I'm really grateful for that, but I think it's also something that you like really have to seek out and try to make those connections with people, because obviously speaking with an Italian is the best way to learn because they can correct you, and also once you become better friends, you feel like less scared of making mistakes. And you can also do like a language exchange as well, because a lot of people do want to learn English too, so you can kind of switch off in between. And it's good because I can get practice speaking in a way that you normally would with your friends and not just in school, because school is definitely more formal. I wouldn't learn some of these sayings and phrases that people my age would use, in school. So this is a good way to learn more of like informal speech. The last thing that I've been doing, I have been using the online resources that I used before I came here, as well as using a workbook that I bought when I was here. I usually am very motivated after class to continue studying even though school's over. So I'll come back and have lunch and then do some more online exercises with the resources that I've used before. So like online Italian club, or just looking up, right now it's congiuntivo exercises that I can just find online to practice. Also just writing practice sentences, journaling. I also talk to myself all the time. I live alone, so I talk to myself all the time, talking about my day, talking about what I'm gonna do, pretending I'm telling someone about the details of the trip that I just went on. There are so many things that I just talk to myself about in Italian just to practice. And then also, like I said, the workbook. I just brought a workbook to practice, more exercises basically, and I can check if my answers are correct. Always just doing a little bit extra after class as well, because again, like, you really just have to take initiative if you want to really learn. Of course, I learned so much in school. When I first started, my first week or so, those 4 hours of class were just so difficult. My brain was so tired after I got home. And now it's so much easier to understand my teacher and what they're saying when they're giving instructions. I can understand everything. And I've also noticed a huge improvement as well on our coffee breaks. So we have about like a 45-minute coffee break in the middle of our class day. That's when we practice speaking in Italian with our other classmates. And I've noticed talking with them just how much I've improved with the speed at which I'm able to talk and the vocabulary that I have, how I'm able to get those conjugations a little bit faster. Obviously, with some of the ones like now with conjuntivo or like imperfect. Some of the tenses that are a little bit more difficult to figure out, like on the spot, I still struggle with, but there's definitely been like a huge improvement. So that's very exciting to see. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm very overwhelmed with how much I still have to learn, especially getting up into more of these advanced topics. I often do get really discouraged because some days I'll just like have a really bad day where I feel like I can't understand anything. Nothing's making sense, or that day I just didn't understand a lot of vocabulary. Sometimes I'll talk to my friends and again, I just don't have the vocabulary that I need. I get really discouraged. I'm like, I can't speak Italian. That definitely still happens. So while there is progress, there's still like looking at this long road ahead of me that can be pretty daunting. But with that being said, I'm way less scared of making mistakes. I understand that I'm learning, and every time, I do make a mistake, and getting that correction just helps me learn. Your brain isn't just gonna learn Italian by itself. Since I have lived in other places in the world, if you saw my other video, you know that I lived in South Korea and Taiwan for a while, and people always said like, oh, you didn't pick up the language? Like, pick up the language. I mean, you can't you can't just, especially once you're older, you don't just pick up a language. You have to actively be learning it. You have to actively be wanting to understand the grammar structures and words. Obviously, you can pick up hello, goodbye, thank you, good night, whatever. But to be able to actually speak, you really need to put in the effort. So, again, like I said, even though I'm in school 4 hours a day, I'm in Italy. When I go somewhere, I order in Italian. When I go to a store and I'm looking for something, I ask the store clerk in Italian. But that's not going to help me be able to tell stories, talk about myself, talk about work situations or something, unless I'm actively learning those words and using those words and grammar structures, etc. I hope that you enjoyed the video and found these tips interesting or helpful. I know not all of you are living in the country of the language that you're learning, but if you ever do decide to, just remember things like this where you can really go that extra mile to learn faster and really get better at speaking the language. So in the meantime, just stay tuned with my Instagram to see all the different adventures that I'm up to. And like I said, I'll be trying to go live more often to connect with all of you some more. But just let me know what you want to see, if those are vlogs, if they're videos like this, talking about my learning experience, talking about what it's like to live in Bologna. I also want to do some videos in Italian because now I feel like my Italian is so much better. I will see you all very soon. Bye.